Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Dwivedi, and in this segment today we are going to talk about Indo-Taliban relations. This topic is important from the perspective of prelims and also from the perspective of GS mains papers. So let's begin with the topics of discussion that we are going to look at step by step. We will start with the news first. So it is in the news because for the first time ever, an official contact has been made between an Indian envoy and Taliban. Now, this is something which is a gradual shift, but of course, we never thought that we would be discussing this topic, but it's international relation. We should expect the unexpected. But just keep in mind, Indian envoy to Qatar, Deepak Mittal, he met the Taliban spokespersons and flagged the concerns of India at Doha. Okay, so they met at Doha. Certain concerns were flagged by India, which are said to be positively taken by the Taliban spokesperson 𝐾𝐫𝐢𝐬𝐡𝐭𝐢. So let's move on and talk about this news analysis. What does India stand first? India has said that the safety, security and early return of Indian nationals stranded in Afghanistan, this is the first concern that is raised by India in front of 𝐾𝐫𝐢𝐬𝐡𝐭𝐢. And this is actually something that the biggest concern right now, if we talk about the perspective from the perspective of the current situation. Then the travel of Afghan nationals, especially minorities, the minorities who are there in Afghanistan, that means the Sikhs and the Hindus in Afghanistan, the travel of those are also a cause of concern for India right now. Then the third is Afghanistan's soil should not be used for any anti-Indian activities and terrorism in any manner, which is an indirect reference to Pakistan. Okay, so what happens from now on is something which is everybody is extremely cautious towards it, especially India, because for India it's a security challenge. On the very security front, it's a very big challenge because, of course, you put in together Taliban and Pakistan and, of course, along with China, something that India is always concerned for now. And what is Taliban's stand? Now, Taliban's stand is very clear right now, but it is uncertain. It's very clear from a speech which was read in Pashto by 𝐾𝐫𝐢𝐬𝐡𝐭𝐢 on the social media handle of Twitter. He said that India is very important for the subcontinent and Taliban and Afghanistan wants India to maintain the political, cultural and social ties it has always maintained since the centuries. So let's see what happens. But before we move on, let's talk a bit about what is happening in Afghanistan right now. After the Kabul airport attack, which was of course claimed by the Islamic State of Khorasan province, then again a counter-attack with the help of drones were conducted by the US, supposedly and allegedly on a vehicle that was carrying suicide bombers, and it claimed the lives of many children as well, which is condemned internationally by China and of course Russia. And now, as you can see, on the 31st of August, the ending of the 20 years of war, with this picture when this army general was the last soldier to leave Afghanistan, a disorderly Afghanistan. Moving ahead, let's talk about this news piece where it is saying that Yaqub and Haqqani factions are fighting over the Taliban government. Taliban has not come into power with legitimacy, but through violent means, through disorderly and very messy and not a very systematic ending to the Doha agreement. So, as it is an illegitimate government right now, it is an illegitimate government. It hasn't fought elections and won through elections, but because of that only, because of its illegitimacy, many factions have come up, and this was supposed to happen. So now there are too many factions to fight for the power in Afghanistan. And Panjshir is one of the regions which has never fallen to Taliban. Now that is also under siege. This is the very fresh of the fresh news I am bringing to you. So Panchi Valley lies in the northeastern region of Afghanistan, 150 kilometers from Kabul. And Panjshir Valley, the name Panjshir means 5 lions, Panch Sher. So Panch Sher, and that gives the name Panjshir Valley. This is under siege because it has never fell into the hands of Kabul. India is and all of the big powers in the world, they are very cautious towards this region. And fighting has been going on since the last night, and still many casualties are there, but it is underreported or unreported at all. It's not very clear. So Panchi, and this is under the Northern Alliance. Northern Alliance. India has helped Northern Alliance in the 1990s through financial and military means because this is an anti-Taliban or anti-Taliban force. So Panjshir is under siege, and as you can see, it is very close to Pakistan and India. Because of that, it is a cause of concern that any issues, any instability here will have an impact on India. And moving on, let's talk about the flag of Northern Alliance. This is the flag of Northern Alliance. It was in the news recently because this flag was flown very high, and it is an anti-Taliban resistance. And moving on, this is after the fall of Kabul. Okay, let's talk about India-Taliban relations. So first thing that we need to keep in mind, that the shift did not come all of a sudden. Okay, yesterday we were not supporting Taliban at all. We are still not supporting Taliban in means, but we gradually shifted our position from step by step. So we will discuss that in step by step because we share a very bitter history with Taliban. India shares a bitter history with the Taliban, where if we talk about the hijack of 1999, then the parliament attacks, the freeing of Masood Azhar, who after that planned the 26/11 attacks. So everything, if we talk about from Indian perspective, is not blending well right now. So let's go. India refused to recognize the Taliban regime when it came into power in 1996 to 2001. Okay, after the fall of Afghanistan in the year 1994, and that is under Taliban. After that, from 1996 to 2001, the Talibs were not officially recognized by India. Then Ahmad Shah Massoud, who was leading the Northern Alliance back then against Taliban, visited India in 2001. And told India, the Ministry of External Affairs, Jaswant Singh, he told India that the hijackers are actually supported by Taliban forces, and the hijackers are residing in Pakistan shortly after he was assassinated. Okay, and in a book, How India Sees the World of 2017, Foreign Secretary Sham Saran, he wrote this book, How India Sees the World, and in that only it was said that India supported Northern Alliance through financial and military means in order to keep the resistance happening against Taliban. And in 2018, now here it's very interesting because in 2018, India sent two former diplomats, former ambassador of Afghanistan to Afghanistan in order to have a non-official contact with Taliban. So India started shifting. Shifting why? Because in the year 2009, when the Barack Obama administration was there, he decided to now end this war, end the process of the war that is ongoing in Afghanistan, because in Afghanistan, Talibs became all powerful. So the process is not very new. It has just gradually progressed. What we are having a problem is with the disorderly withdrawal, the messy withdrawal of US troops from Kabul. Okay. So in 2018, in the Moscow format only, because this was a Russia-led format in which India shared, non-official only, India shared the table with Taliban. And inauguration of the President Hamid Karzai's regime happened in December 2001 after the US crackdown, which was because of the 9/11 attacks. After that, India did ask the Afghan government, to Hamid Karzai government, to actually tell Afghanistan, Talibs, the Taliban, to adhere to the red lines. Okay, we will discuss all about that. So India re-established after that. India re-established its mission after 5 years, and the US again decided, we have discussed about that in 2009. The International Conference on Afghanistan in London 2010, India again shifted its position a bit because it was compelled to. compelled to the ideologies that were there at that times with respect to. It is not being said that India did not have any power over it. But if the world powers started to shift their position, India also shifted its position, but still it did not recognize Taliban. So in 2010, the government of India told the government of Afghanistan that we will have an outreach to Taliban if they adhere to the red lines. Red lines, that means we will talk to Taliban only if they adhere to certain rules and regulations. Then Kabul after that did go to Pakistan to talk to Taliban in order for the terrorist activities to stop, but it burnt its own fingers, because even after that, even after reaching out to Pakistan in order to tell Taliban, because Pakistan holds the lever to Taliban in order to stop terrorist attack, nothing happened. Then India stopped after that. Again, a quiet shift in position. How? That India started that we will not have any public articulation of the red lines, quote unquote. We will not talk about any rules and regulations for Afghanistan, but we will ask the Afghan government to bring any changes which are Afghan owned and Afghan led. So Talibans were requested. They were actually not requested, demanded to adhere to the constitution of Afghanistan, because it is Afghan owned and Afghan led, and of course not create any nuisance and terrorism in the region. But nothing of that sort happened. And now India, if we talk about the current scenario, India did unofficially meet Taliban in Qatar few months back. But this is the official meeting we are talking about. Officially, if you meet someone, you are giving legitimacy to the power they hold. Then India in chair. The August chairship was held by India. The rotating presidency of the UNSC, it was held by India. Now it has ended. For the month of August only it was there. So UNSC adopted a resolution on Taliban, and Russia and China abstained from it. This resolution talked about Taliban 5 times, but this resolution did not condemn Taliban. This resolution just said that the Afghan soil should not be used for terrorism. And China and Russia abstained from it. Okay, they did not vote any for or against. 13 members voted for, but these two countries, big countries, they did not vote either for or against, because they said that their concerns are not taken into account. China also condemned US for the drone attack in which the lives of children were also claimed. And again, Russia said that nothing was there in the resolution which showed their concerns about the evacuation, the unhealthy evacuation. And again, if we talk about these two countries, they are regional powers, they need to be taken into account. So, moving on, let's talk about the challenges. First challenge is the mosaic of Afghanistan itself. So many factions, so many groups fighting for power. This is causing a lot of concern, because any unstable region will become Syria, and we do not want Afghanistan, which is at the heart of Central Asia, to become Syria. Again, not Afghan owned and led. This is a critique for India. This is a critique for India because the Moscow format, Doha agreement, everything was actually US led or Russia led. So where is Afghan led? That is another challenge that, of course, this is something we have to take into account. Trust deficit. Although Taliban has said that, if we talk about this news piece, I'm going to refer it here. Here it is said that Taliban will help us to take Kashmir. This is said by a spokesperson from the Imran Khan government. But Taliban has said that bilateral issue this is. Kashmir issue is bilateral as well as internal issue. But still, there is a trust deficit, because Taliban does have ties with Al-Qaeda. And Al-Qaeda in this news piece, as you can see, congratulated Taliban and called for Kashmir liberation from the clutches of anti-Islamic groups. So that is something that we have, a trust deficit. We do not have a robust trust infrastructure between Taliban and India right now. Who is controlling the government? Taliban is. Taliban is in retaliation to those groups who are terrorist groups themselves. It is not a democracy. In India, if multiple parties fight, they will not fight with guns and boulders and rockets. They will fight through elections. So that is the point of concern, that when a government has not come into power through legitimate means, it will of course be challenged by other illegitimate groups. That is another problem. We do not have trust. Then again, if we talk about America's image has suffered a lot. It is one of the superpowers in the world. Now, if we talk about multipolarity is a must in the world right now, because of course any country, if given unbridled power, will work like this only. They will go to different countries and fight wars and not do nation building. So as you can see, America's image has also suffered a lot. Now this particular news piece suggests why. Biden says that the era of US nation building is over, and he marks the end of the war of Afghanistan. Nation building. There is a duality. A duality in the sense Biden administration said that the war in Afghanistan was never to make or build nations. It was a war. But here, he is saying that we tried to build nations, and that is why we had to get involved in war. Now, another intent that was clear, that Biden administration, Joe Biden himself said that whenever US will go to a war, we will make sure that we do not get ourselves engaged into nation making. What is this duality? America's image, of course, has suffered a lot. Who will trust America now? And America, having good terms with India, should of course try to build proper trust between India and America itself. Okay? Weaponization of Afghanistan. Why am I saying weaponization of Afghanistan? Because of this news piece. Taliban and Afghanistan, US left billions of dollars of weapons in Afghanistan. That means weapons are now more accessible, very advanced sort of weapons, helicopters, everything is very accessible to not only Talibs, but also other factional groups. So that is also a big security challenge, not only to India, but to all of the world. If they have access to weapons, if they have access to helicopters, advanced weapons, of course it will create a threat, and that will of course make other countries to buy more and more weapons. And we all know who is the biggest seller of weapons. Moving on, let's talk about this way forward, not news piece. So international high-level group should be formulated. High-level group should contain mostly of regional countries which are actually at the adjacent threat problems, such as India, China, let's say Pakistan, also Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Iran. India has no problems with Iran. India never wanted any problems with China or Pakistan. But if any country is not calibrating its own stand with respect to Afghanistan, such as Pakistan, we need more groups to come along. Not only the countries of USA, Russia and China, but also the Southeast Asian countries. They should also come into the picture because their economic interests, their security interests will be threatened. Moving on, diplomatic sustenance. Diplomacy should never be bypassed. That is very important, because when we do not communicate to some group, it will feel cornered. And once it feels cornered, it will try to ask for diplomacy in means which are not suitable for a country like India, such as violence. They will resort to violence so that India can talk to them. So something is very important. Once we understand how international relations work, diplomacy should never be bypassed. Increasing emergency trooping in border areas, especially with respect to Kashmir, because although Taliban has said that Kashmir is a bilateral issue and everything else, but the lever is of course in the hands of Pakistan, because Pakistan use such groups as strategic assets. A country such as Pakistan can never come openly in war with India. They also know that. So such groups, Haqqani Network, Al-Qaeda, and these are groups, they will of course say these groups do not belong to us, but they will still keep on financially and militarily helping those groups in order to wage micro wars against India. Then economic development. Economic development for regions such as Afghanistan is very important, because wherever there is an economic vacuum, it will always be filled with radical groups. So If any country which has a lot of economic opportunities, a lot of economic prospects and ventures, they will never resort to violence until and unless they are brainwashed to such an extent that they are ready to leave their jobs and go on a war and also risk their lives. Okay, so these are the way forward. Let's look at our question. Okay, discuss in detail the current situation of Afghanistan and how can India engage with the Taliban to secure national interest in 250 words. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.